where you left Mr. Dodd. Yes, sir. Next, we'd love to welcome Mr. Hank McCoy. He's got a PhD and a couple blue hairs on his head. George Booza, Beast. Sticking with blue, if you need a quote from the Bible, or maybe to disappear into the upper rafters, we have Adrian Huff, Nightcrawler. A little known relative of Nightcrawler, you might see her busting up some Sentinels very soon tomorrow afternoon, Miss Lenore Zan Rogue. The big bad of X-Men 97, you know him, you love him, he's obsessed with Jean and Cyclops, he's also a little blue. Mr. Chris Britton, Mr. Sinister. Whether it's Lydian Beetlejuice, the Resident Evil franchise, Claire Redfield, or Jubilee, our favorite fireworks, please welcome Allison Cord, ladies and gentlemen. Jill Valentine from Resident Evil as well as Jean Grey Phoenix, Dark Phoenix. Everybody loves her. The Good Witch, Miss Catherine Disher, everybody. We have the time-traveling mutant himself, Mr. Lawrence Bain for Cable. Come on now, Lawrence. And Inkpot award-winning, Emmy-nominated director, writer, producer, animator, African-American icon, Mr. Larry Houston. Come on up, Larry. Usually we're all strangers when we come to a town for ComiCon, but this is at home for so many of our wonderful cast. Cal, George, Allison, Catherine.
Yeah, where have you been? Where have you guys been? I don't get it. We're all over the US and Europe. And this is the first time in 5 years we're in Canada. And we're all Canadian voice actors. What's up with that?
Hey, this is a town that made X-Men with its voice talent. Wow. Just that simple. Cal, you've been recording at the same studio you perfected the voice all those years ago. Can you talk a little bit about returning to old stomping grounds and bringing back Wolverine in 2022 and 2023?
No. It was, and that word again, it was surreal. It was just weird walking into that studio. 27 years later, what is it? Since it was over 97 probably, or 96, back half of 96. 25 years ago, we walked back into the same studio like nothing happened. It's like crazy. And it just fell right back into the same groove, except we didn't have a voice director in the studio with us. She was in LA, directing us from LA on a Zoom sort of thing, you know, on a big screen, and we're in Toronto. And so that was a bit weird, but now it's fine. Now that we get to know her and new people, and so it's just like the old days, except we're older.
I really love the episode Weapon X Lies and Videotape. That was such a great one, and I love Wolverine and Beast teaming up. And you and George actually used to carpool at the very beginning of the con journey. That was always fun to see you two coming to the airports together. You and George have been friends a long time. George, talk about warming up to Wolverine back in the 90s.
Well, I wouldn't say warming up. It's a strong term. But no, we were friends right off the bat. We'd also run into each other all the time at other voiceover auditions. And we just became friends. And once we started doing X-Men, we never really hung out. Actually, I missed the rap party at your house for the show, which
you sure did.
Was quite the bash.
You sure did. I didn't.
But I was shooting another
Jubilee
show at the time, and I couldn't make it.
Cyclops was there.
Cyclops was there.
Yes. God bless me and rest in peace.
But I used to carpool it with Cal and Donna. I drop my car off at their house, and then we'd share a cab up to the airport and go to the Comic-Cons. But ever since they tore up the Gardner Expressway, getting across the city is really hard. So No, I just make my own way to the airport, because driving that Lakeshore Boulevard all the way to the other end of the city is nonsense. Even getting here, this should have taken 10, 15 minutes, and it took us almost an hour.
You tell you're in Toronto and everybody's just bitching about the traffic. So how's the weather there in Toronto? Oh, shut up. It's just weather.
George, you a lot of our cast was
And
able
we would
to-
also see, Mr. Baines was at all the auditions we were auditioning for. You'd always see Lawrence, the cable, like, you know, who knew? With his pit bull in all the auditions. Is he still alive, Lawrence?
Yeah, he's 105. He's been replaced by a pug beagle.
So I would always see
700 in dog years, isn't it?
I would always see Lawrence and Norm Spencer, Cyclops. We were all called for the same voice type things, casting. So I would always, we know each other from way back.
Now, Adrian,
Yes, sir.
talk about your journey coming into X-Men. It was, I think, season 2 or 3. Larry, is that right? I think it's 3. Season 3, okay. So, had you seen the show at the time?
I hadn't seen the show. I was like doing TV, film, and theater around town. I spent 10 years in London, England, and gathered a bunch of dialects while I was over there. And my agent at the time teamed up with a voice agent. It's a formless mega agency in Toronto, so the voice agent was saying, well, who have you got who does accents and things? We got this thing, and so I ended up getting a couple of commercials with different accents. And then there's this one, we want someone who can do a German accent, we just don't want Colonel Klink. And so, I can do that. So I went in and there was that incredible speech in the episode, which is so incredibly written, and I saw the character and they told me about him and I went, okay, and something just landed, you know, and the script just sort of took off and I finished it and I don't remember what I did. And I looked over at Dan Hennessy, the voice director, and he looked at me. And he's a very passionate guy, isn't he? He says. I go, yeah. You want to do it again? Okay. And so next thing I know, I'm in a studio and I've got Cal Dodd on my right, and I've got Lenore Zan on my left, and I think Norm was there. And may he rest in peace. I was watching you guys learning how to do animated acting. Because it's not just your voice. I mean, Cal, like, you could practically see the knives coming out of his fist. You need all that, and so oh, okay. And Lenore, of course, is, so where's your God now? Open your heart, hello.
I was gonna say that that was only my second animated series, and I don't know how many Cal had done before that, but I was new to the game myself. Yeah, but it was fun. Sugar.
It's amazing the episodes where you introduce a new character like Nightcrawler, but then there's such a great arc with Wolverine and Rogue as well. And you know, Larry, you're having Apocalypse and Mystique concoct this master plan with the cure, but then you also, in the middle of that, Lenore has this great self-realization. I loved how in the old shows, it took their time and they allowed the humanity and the character moments amid the action and building up villains. You definitely made sure you used every page to its fullest extent. When you read that script, Lenore, this is before Rogue's Tale, this was very early in season 1, getting to have those character moments that this show gave, it wasn't just one star, everybody would have a moment to shine, and that was a really special one. I know you talked about that a lot.
Is this mic on? It is? Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, I just got to say thank you for us being here. Thank you to the fans. It's because of you that X-Men 97 is a thing. And who here is excited? Alright. So before I go on about anything, I just want to say we were in LA for the premiere on Wednesday, and it was really good. Fans kind of went crazy. So those of you who are going to see it tomorrow at 10 a.m. here, you're in for a treat. And the rest of you, you're in for a treat March 20th when it comes out on Disney Plus. So, yeah, so thanks again. Which episode are you?
The Cure.
Oh, The Cure. Yeah, well, some of you may remember The Cure is the one where Rogue decides that she wants to get rid of her superpowers because they make her unable to touch anyone skin to skin, and therefore unable to really fall in love or be intimate with anyone, and therefore, never really have a close partnership or a family. And so she hears about the scientist on the island of Muir Island who can take away their genetic markers that make them mutants. But by the time that the episode is finished, she reaches a point where she realizes it's actually those same superpowers that give her so much pain that make her who she is. And she learns to embrace herself and to embrace, herself, warts and all. And at the very, very end of it, she says, there ain't no cure for who you are. And I'm gonna use my powers for good, and I reckon I can live with that. And I think that's just such an important message, even for today's audiences. So I think there's a whole bunch of young people who need to hear that it's okay to be different. And in fact, hey, isn't it our differences that make us beautiful and bring us all together?
Allison Court, you had a great opening arc as the fish out of water, and I think you played those emotional beats really well. I mean, coming from Beetlejuice, you're incredible in that, but this was a whole different set of muscles that you were stretching right off the bat in the pilot. Can you talk about the working with Dan on finding that reality for the character and just playing the astonishment and also the pain of the foster parents and their reactions?
Yeah, I think it was, my number one direction was just don't sound like Lydia. So that was the most important thing. But then it worked well because I was a teenager in a room full of really strong actors with all different backgrounds, but a lot of heavy theater backgrounds as well. And that kind of really played into it, so that awkward kind of, I think with Jubilee, there are emotions there, but what came through that probably ultimately resonated was the awkwardness of I don't fully know how to express myself right now. So there's a reservation in her when she would sort of be sassy to make up for a lot of her, just not knowing what to do in a situation. And that I felt really at home with because it was a very different scenario than what I'd been used to. And I think the best direction, aside from Sydney, I want her just raking me over the coals to not sound like Lydia, was that it was allow yourself to live in those difficult moments, those awkward pauses, the not knowing how to emote in a situation. So you can tell there's a wall there until story-wise it would start to come down. So yeah, everybody, Dan Hennessy was great, but we also had 8,000 other guys there from Fox, from Saban, from Marvel, so many of you guys in that room. Most of the time when we were in the booth, especially for that first season, we'd do a scene maybe 2 pages long or something. We record, and Dan would be like, okay, hold on. It goes silent. And then we're just in that room, and we're hanging out with each other in the studio, looking through, we can see through this window into the control room, and all you see is these guys, and they're like, and then 5 minutes later, Dan's like, okay, we'll go again. That's honestly what that first season was like. Larry, you were there, you were one of those guys. Yeah, so I think by the end of that season, what Jubilee was feeling came from a very place of truth For me personally.
Catherine Disher, were the sessions excruciating in season 1 for you as well?
I don't know whether I would have said excruciating, but you know what freaks me out is sitting beside Allison Court, who was, what were you, 16?
I was 18 by the
Were you
time.
18?
Yeah.
But wow, like you were a goth, you were going through your goth phase. And I remember thinking, now I realize I was only like 15, 16 years older than you are, but now I look at you and we're like con buds. And Allison, she's directed me in animation, and I mean, you're not, obviously not the same age as me now. It's not like we've caught up or anything, but it's just so weird that you were a teenager and here we are as anyway. Okay, sorry, I don't even remember what your question was.
Excruciation. That is the word.
Excruciating, kind of like my answer. People
So
used
she
to-
associates the word excruciating with me. This. Okay, got it.
No, I was thinking of those records, and you know, I'm kind of, I did a lot of animation before that. I've done a lot since. Too many that I couldn't even name them all. And my major thing with animation is to get in my comfy shoes and no makeup and get out fast. And during the pandemic, I've been literally doing it in my pajamas from my bedroom in my home studio. So these group records would go on for hours because, you know, you're doing a group scene and maybe you didn't need to do your line again, but they needed to do it again for someone else's line, and then they'd go through and do pickups from individuals, and we were smoking. People were smoking in the recording booth.
And? What's wrong with that?
Sometimes we catch fire. Sorry.
But you know, it's invaluable. At the beginning of any cartoon, I really loved being in a group record so you could hear what world you're in. You can hear the other actors, you get a sense of where everyone's coming from, what their voices are like, you know what world you're in. And then after that, for God's sake, just call me in individually for a 45-minute session, you know, in my comfy shoes. But yeah, it was interesting, and I think we all bonded, and I think it kind of added to the show, really, in a very positive way. The fact that we had this weird dysfunctional bonding thing going on.
Plus, we go drinking after the.
Oh my God, you remember they used to let us go for dinner?
We used to go drinking afterwards.
And even during the show, remember they'd do a dinner break and we'd be like, don't send us off to dinner because some of us might not come back.
The emotion poured out. when
Yeah,
you-
it hit the Montreal Bistro for a couple of pints between.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was
Yeah.
drinking in the middle of the record. It's like, don't send us to dinner, dear God. You know, have you learned nothing in a whole season?
Sorry, I'm still stuck on goth Jubilee.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Okay, so it honestly, like Lydia, when Beetlejuice the movie came out, that was actually me. Like that was me. So I remember going to see the movie with my parents, and my mom turning to look at me, and she's like, "Hey, let's hope Nelvana gets the cartoon rights. You got to be Lydia." And I was like, "On it." So that was, yeah, Lydia was me, and I was still kind of coming out of that phase. I was moving away from that phase. I had long, dyed black hair. She's not wrong, but
You were so beautiful and so fresh. I mean, you're still beautiful, but it was that teenage thing. And now it just freaks me out that, you know, you're a grown-up and we're still doing this.
Who else is still beautiful on the panel? Start with Christine.
Everybody's beautiful. God, actors are so...
Ray Stevens. Everything is beautiful.
So Larry, you beautiful son of a bitch. Tell us about taking on and being the only successful, I think we can get a round of applause, the best Phoenix, Dark Phoenix adaptation. It's almost impossible to top at this point. When you decided to tackle that, and you were one of the only cartoons doing like 3, 4, 5 part, I mean, you were really taking a gamble there. I'd love to hear about the decision, if you had to talk to the network about taking on that much of a serialized arc for an episode, and then how did you tell Catherine, like, oh, you're about to be possessed?
No, well, by the third, I think it was the third year when we were into doing the series that we said, okay, we convinced Sydney I. Wanter and Margaret that we're going to take on the best story that had been done in the X-Men at the time. the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga. And we knew you just couldn't do like one episode, so we planned out at least a 9-episode story arc. So you have 5 episodes showing the Jean Grey becoming Phoenix and the ascent of her powers. And then you had another 4 episodes showing the corruption of the powers when she becomes the Dark Phoenix and the dark side comes up. And I think that's one of the reasons why the cartoon does it so much better than the movie, because we had 9.5 hours to show her develop her powers, show how good her heart was, but then the power, absolute power corrupting and going in that other direction. And for me, there was no internet back there, okay? So I had to physically bring in my collection from home, put it on a Xerox machine, and Xerox page after page after page, and hand it off to the designers, the backgrounds, the storyboard guys, the colorists, say, look, we're going to get this right, and it's going to look exactly like the comic books, and I did my best to make sure it did that. You know, there were also panels, I think, when they were on Fighting on the Moon, that we actually took panels from the comic book and animated them into the show, so that what you saw was like almost like a living comic book. And it was all done deliberately, and I made sure that I'm a fan, because I grew up reading comic books since I was a kid, in elementary school from beyond, so I know what it's like to see something you enjoy up on the screen. So I made sure to do that and make sure that you would enjoy it as much as I did.
We enjoy you being on this panel, Larry. And thank you for all of your hard work. Well, the other thing the show did, I won't say anything about X-Men Apocalypse, but the show had a great run with Apocalypse, and Lawrence, you must have got tired of saying that name with such vitriol. I mean, every time you said it to the little, what was your cube called? What was your pal? What was that?
Oh, come on.
Larry? The cube? What was it?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, wait.
I'm so relieved he doesn't remember, because I'm the excellent guy who did it and I don't remember. I got one thing about Dan Hennessy and when I auditioned for cable. By the way, I'm not doing The Wild Man from Borneo in '97. I'm doing Carl Dente, Executioner.
Which is in the episodes tomorrow. You're gonna love it, I must say.
I was told to come in and read for, obviously, some hard-ass guy, and I read it hard-ass, and Dan Hennessy said, no, just read it like you. So, I mean, he was looking at the pit bull too, I guess. And so I just read it like me. And it was all I could do most of the time to stay just in that zone that Dan put me in, because I didn't think I was doing anything. I didn't think I was doing any work. I thought I was just, guy, how you doing? And then I heard the growl without the overwhelming malice that I thought the characters should have, and so I just ended up, it was pretty much phoning in the lines. I want to say, someone said to me that it sounded so natural, and as Catherine just explained, it was anything but. We were in the studio and we were doing this work together. And that was an innovation that is now gone in animation. There's not groups of people in studios anymore doing anything in animation. Everybody's doing it separately. But I was told more than once, asked, did you improvise those lines? Were you guys just allowed to say whatever? No, categorically, no. We were not allowed to say that. So it's a tip of the hat to the talent here that it sounded that way. Because we were just having such a great time doing it, and we weren't deviating from the script. We were reading an excellent script, and we were looking at each other, and sometimes we were shaking fists at each other, or sometimes trying to make the other guy corpse. But either way, it was live, and that's a bygone era in animation, and I, for one, miss it.
I
And to the
actually did
writers.
a raccoon. I did a cartoon a few weeks ago where it was a group record, and it just felt so weird and unnatural and kind of dangerous, being in a room with 5 other people.
Yeah, dangerous.
Yeah, no, it's
I hate when that happens, when there's other people in there with you. Oh, they're just getting away. Yeah, no, that's no good.
No, one of the things I wanted to let everyone know is that when when we were up there that one year, the first year, I mean, there were like so many cooks in the kitchen. That's what Allison saw when we were up there, is that we talked to the actors and also Dan Hennessy, that we wanted all of you to work within your normal register so that when you had to go up and or down in emotions, it sounded natural. Because that's exactly what we wanted for you guys, because you guys are all excellent actors to begin with, so we wanted to pull that out. But getting past Sydney and all the rest of them from New York, it was like a big, you know, that kind of stuff. But that's what we ended up with finally, and that's why everything sounded so natural.
Gotta say, Dan Hennessy, best voice director. He's retired now, but the great thing about him was you knew he could do any of our characters.
Exactly.
Like if we weren't there, it's like Dan could just take over and do it. He was amazing.
Yeah, and he did it. He was so supportive too of voice actors and stuff. 'Cause I had never done anything like this in my life because I was a singer. And it's just like, all these guys were strangers to me because you never see voiceover people when you're a singer. You just you do all the singing for an hour and a half, and a voiceover guy like Donnie Burns walks in and just says, "Molson X, great ale." And that's him done for the day. He makes twice as much money as we did standing there singing for an hour and a half. So, yeah.
Cal, you had amazing turns in the show. I mean, everything from the deep emotion to trying to figure out how Wolverine would laugh when he's getting the trampoline. That was a unique challenge, right? Kind of thinking, how does this guy have fun?
Yeah, I based the laugh on a buddy of mine from my hometown where I grew up, and he was the toughest guy for like 5 counties, and just, you know, he's infamous for just beating the, you know, and not taking any guff. And I think Wolverine, the laugh was like really, he doesn't laugh. You know, when would Wolverine laugh ever? And that was the only time, and it was weird. Still, when I watch it, it's hard to watch it because the women are throwing him up in the blanket, and he's like, "Whoa, no!" Like Joe, my friend, you know, and that was it for his laughing because he just doesn't laugh. He just is grumpy all the time.
Well, you are the Sean Connery when it comes to Wolverine. He was the Bond, you're the Wolverine, and everybody else has tried to imitate the two of you gentlemen
Thank you.
for decades.
Thank you very much.
You know, Larry, we think about Spider-Man with all his amazing villains, and they're all, you know, based on other arachnids, insects, and so forth. And of course, Batman has an amazing rogues gallery. But what you did with the show was you created a lot of enemies that had a human form. There wasn't a tail and all this stuff. Right. And Sinister is another great example coming in of creating a villain that's got his unique vision, his obsession, and then Chris gets to play in season 5, probably the best episode of that season, Descent, where we see the Sinister versus Darwin caring for his ill fiance wife. I'm not sure how connected.
It was his wife.
Yeah.
How's she doing?
Well, before I get into that, I just want to say that Toronto is my hometown. And I spent the first 50 years of my life here. And it's such a pleasure to finally have this group be at this Toronto ComiCon. And I think it's such a pleasure, and I thank you all for coming and that we are able to be here as a part of all this. My wife died. But yes, Sinister Star, he was a geneticist, he was a contemporary of Charles Darwin, and his wife got sick, and his child, and he started to look for a cure. And so eventually he took genetic samples from dead bodies, and he eventually experimented on himself, and then he became Mr. Sinister. I think I've got that right, Larry?
Yep, that's true.
If I remember, because I remember very little about the actual recordings that everyone has a much better memory than I do. But yeah, his origins I found in season 5 were the most interesting. Because I thought it was a brilliant scenario for his character. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Thank you. I know it's not normal, but can I ask a question? I think it's interesting in Marvel and, you know, Stan Lee's world, and Larry, maybe you might want to chime in on this too, but most evil, villainous characters are much more interesting when they're not just evil. They have another part of them, or a history, or something that has happened in their lives that has made them cross over to becoming somebody who wants to create, pain and suffering in the world instead of trying to help humanity, or in our cases, mutant kind. And so, can you talk a little bit more about that, and Larry, the same thing with, say, for instance, like Magneto, their background, like what gives you the oomph to write those characters and create those characters?
Well, we found in writing, first of all, the writing came of Eric Lewald, Julie Lewald. They were really good writers of writing character dramas. Now, believe it or not, they knew zero about the X-Men. I knew too much. So it was a good marriage in the two of them, because I educated them on all the mythology of the X-Men, but also they were good at taking the characters and not just writing about a villain, wanted to be a bad guy. They delved into the backstory. So like, Juggernaut is always pissed because he was jealous of his stepbrother having more love than he did. Magneto and Xavier want the same thing, but two different methods. And they have empathy for each other. They're frenemies in the show. So I was very lucky to work with writers that wanted to write character dramas. And so like when we did the backstory of Rogue, finding out how she was rejected by her father, she was manipulated by Mystique, you finding out this backstory, and then all of a sudden she got these powers from Ms. Marvel, and she has her stuck in her head. So we had a lot of chance to play with a lot of drama that way. So I put a lot of thanks to having working with writers who wanted to delve deeper than surface, behind the scenes. And like there's a scene, I think, with Jubilee at the end of the first season where she verbalizes for the first time, I'm a part of the family, I'm a part of this group. And she feels like, and Wolverine chimes in and says, yeah, I feel the same way, that now you guys are a family going to save people who actually don't like you, but you're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, I just want to say the scripts were amazing. They were like nothing else I had ever read in animation. They were more like radio plays. They were, it was so refreshing and so unusual. They just blew me away, and the writing blows me away when I rewatch it 30 years later. It's amazing.
We were very blessed to have those kind of writers on the team. I mean, so many things that came together for the X-Men that I call it lightning in a bottle, because it hasn't happened again. Yeah. Getting this cast of fabulous actors here, getting the writing done right, bringing on a fanboy like me to take care of everything, and working with we had a broadcast standards and practice person who could have shut down all of the creativity we're doing here, but her background, instead of being from Saturday morning, she came from live action. So a lot of all of the stories we wanted to do that would push the envelope, she was open to. And so we were able to get a lot of stories like the one with Nightcrawler about faith and God, and that she was open to us doing those kind of stories. And the stars were aligned for our series.
A lot of I'll destroy you. It wasn't murder, kill. It was a lot of destroy and decimate. But you did add that ad-lib line that then David Hiblum did in the season 1 finale, which wasn't a threat, but it's a great line. Will you give it to us, Larry?
Yeah, there's a line where the X-Men goes off to save the people who don't like him, and McNeil's saying, his line that I added was like, the brave are the first to die. And it wasn't written in that episode, so I put it in. And that was his line. That really was a button to that scene.
And also served as a motivation for him to get involved in the end. Without that line, it's just, oh, well, I guess we needed somebody to save Xavier at the end. But
right.
That sort of, the way he delivered it too is almost...
God, he was so good at that. And then at the end of that same episode, I rewrote the script so that you saw Magneto saving Xavier by getting on top of the Blackbird and protecting it from Master Mode killing them both. And then when he's in the parachute and they're talking to each other, that scene wasn't written in the script. That was actually in Act 2, and I stole it from Act 2 and put it in Act 3 because at that point it made more sense. And it established that he wasn't just a bad guy, they're friends, but they have two different ways, like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They have two different ways of accomplishing the same goal of blending into society and protect the mutants from humanity.
It's a shame we didn't have more parachute conversations. I feel like that's a niche.
Yeah,
for the X-Men.
that was fun because at the first season I had total control of everything, so I could move things around, I could re-record, I could do everything I wanted because, believe it or not, we were never guaranteed a season 2, guys. They thought we were going to crash and burn the first season, and it's only because the ratings were absolutely #1 for the whole year. It was either us or Power Rangers that were forced to give me a season 2. And I have to thank all of you because if you guys hadn't watched it, we would have never gotten past season 1.
Yeah, it's been amazing to revisit the. Oh yeah, don't fall. The tide's coming in. The tide's coming in.
Yeah.
We'll survive. I'll get it later. So, Larry, talk a bit about coming back to see these characters brought back to life and your experience Wednesday. And Margaret Loesch was that she came out, the woman that put her job on the line to do this show.
Yeah, we were, myself, the Lee Walls, we were invited to the premiere. And also we were able to bring Margaret Loesch. And if you guys don't know that name, it's unfortunate, but she was the reason we have all the shows we had on Fox back in those days, because when I was working at Marvel, we did a show called Pride of the X-Men. I was one of the directors. We got that done, but it didn't sell back then. Between her and Stan, they were my boss. In fact, 6 years later, she became the CEO of Fox Kids, called me up, the Lee Walls, and said, we're doing the, and Will Mineo and Rick Holberg said, we're doing the X-Men. She's the reason that it got on the air, because none of the other networks wanted to put the X-Men on the air. They didn't understand it, they didn't believe in it. She did believe in it, and she got the X-Men on the air, Batman, Spider-Man, all those shows. And the thing which we didn't find out until maybe 15 years ago, we're at lunch talking with her, and she told us that, because she has a boss, right? So she goes to talk to her boss that she wants to put the X-Men on the air. He did not get it. He didn't really like the X-Men, but he said, if you believe in it, that's fine. But if it fails, it's going to be your job. So she put her job on the line to put the X-Men on the air for all of us. It worked, thank God for you guys, but she really believed in the show. And we brought her to X-Men 95, and everybody came up to talk to her, to thank her, because she hadn't been seen for a long time. She pretty much retired. And she loved the premiere. She loved seeing, voice is going. She loved seeing what they've done with the show and the episodes that she saw. And I was so proud to have her there. And there's a lot of pictures of her somewhere on the Facebook right now. They're all over the place, but yeah. Margaret Loesch, just try and remember that name. She was the best.
The Saturday morning Santa. She gave us
Yes.
all the gifts. The good news is we're only halfway through the day today, so all of you are welcome to come by Celebrity Autograph Alley to ask questions, to say hello. We'll be here until probably 5:30 today, so come on down, guys. Thanks for coming to this panel. It's been an absolute pleasure to host the cast of X-Men Series X-Men 97. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you very soon.